Hey everybody, welcome back to the HoloNet Marauders. Matt and I are here today to talk about a very important thing to us. We're doing another video game interview. We haven't done one in a while. I
Mm.
think the last one we did was with Jameson Jones, who was Rookie 1 in Rebel Assault. So that was a
Rebel Assault 2.
That was a fun
Well, no, just Rebel Assault 2.
Rebel Assault 2, right? So today we're here to talk about another beloved Star Wars video game of ours, the Phantom Menace game. Matt and I mainly played it on PS1. It was for PC as well.
Mm.
And this game, I don't know what it is, but Matt and I are that age where we started to grow up really with Star Wars around the prequels. And Episode 1, The Phantom Menace was just like, it was the reintroduction to Star Wars for a lot of us, right? Because 83 was the Return of the Jedi. And then 16 years later, we get Phantom Menace, and the hype was so big for the Star Wars to be coming back to the big screen. Obviously, there was books and other things, video games,
But
and
needless to say, we weren't around in 83. So
No,
for me
no.
personally,
This was it. Yeah.
The Phantom Menace was my introduction to Star Wars. You know, AJ says reintroduction for a lot of people, but for me,
For us.
4-year-old Matt, it was the first movie going experience I remember. Was seeing the Phantom Menace in theaters, and I just remembered like the hype around this movie just really shaped me as a Star Wars fan, like totally and completely.
Yeah, and obviously I didn't even introduce you guys. My apologies, but we're getting to the game here. So we're joined here by Michael Ebert and Ray West, who worked on the game. You guys worked for Big Ape. Was it Big Ape Games or just Big Ape?
Big Ape Productions.
Big Ape Productions. Okay.
See, he knows.
we always whenever we play the game or would play it, you know, that logo pops up and we're like, oh, Big Ape.
Oh my god. The
and
hype
just-
levels on that Big Ape logo are just through the roof. I can't even tell you.
So if you guys want to like start off by kind of introducing yourselves and like what you did each for the game, you know, we can start with Michael.
Yeah, I'm Michael Ebert. I'm a video game designer, though at that time I was kind of an artist / video game designer. So I did a lot of the artwork and level design for probably about half the levels in the game or so. Built the 3D geometry, made the textures. It was much more the Wild West back then. So people just did kind of everything.
Right.
Yeah, my name is Ray West. I was technically the animator on the project. You know, all of us sort of, I think we had a total of 10 guys making this game, which is like, talk about the Wild West. This had to be the last time that any small group of guys would be entrusted with a Star Wars project. It was wild. So yeah, I mean, all of us did stuff working on level design, layouts. All of us knew the tool in and out. So yeah, I mean, that's primarily what I did.
Wow, 10 guys.
We're going to a party right after this, and we're going to go see, I think, the other 2 level designers.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
On this game, and that was it.
That's incredible. Yeah, send them our compliments from us.
Yeah,
you know,
of course.
Make sure they know. Like, that's amazing.
What I was getting at was with the Phantom Menace, like at the time, Matt, I think you said you were 4 or 5 or whatever. I was 6 years old, I believe, just about. But like, I have an older brother, and he would play all the video games, and I would kind of just try to play what he was playing. And we had the Phantom Menace game. And did the game come out before or after the film?
Actually, the PC version came out the couple days before the release of the movie.
Right.
The PlayStation version was delayed, I think, might have been 3 months, 4 months, something like that.
Yeah, I remember after the game came out, we were all so happy that it was out. And then John Barnes, one of the other level designers, and I had to move into LucasArts Studios and work with the programmers for a couple months to get that port done, because it was never designed to be on the PlayStation 1. That was a last minute change.
Let me tell you, thank you for that, because that's how I played the game. It was right there. You know, my dad got me that when I got a PS2 for Christmas. He went to like Toys R Us, just picked up a bunch of PlayStation 1 games because he knew the PlayStation 2 could play them, brought them home, was like, look at all the games I got for you. And I played that to death. I am telling you.
And like as a kid, I wasn't good at video games. Like I could play.
I never got past the first level.
I couldn't get past Auto Gunga. So at least I got by
Oh,
The first
sorry.
level.
There's a long and distinguished list of people who did. We'll see that guy too. The guy who
Yeah, we're gonna see that guy today.
was it the jumping puzzle? We have to ask. Was it the
Yeah,
jumping puzzle?
it probably, as a kid, like I was like, I can't. I'm not coordinated enough to do this yet.
Oh,
Yeah,
God.
yeah. That was something. That was the other guy who we'll see today. The other guy,
Yeah.
Dan Ross.
We'll
is gonna be
punch him for you.
Okay. That sounds good.
I have to say, it's funny. You know, the game came out you said a few days before the movie, or a few weeks?
I think so. It
Few
was
days?
I remember seeing it on the shelves in Las Vegas for whatever reason. I had gone from E3, where we were basically the game's done here, before the movie came out. Then I went and saw it on the shelves like 2 or 3 days before I knew the actual premiere was. I was actually surprised to see it. Maybe they just
Yeah.
broke the street date or something, but
Yeah, they had that timed out pretty specific, because I mean, the short version of this was somewhere about 17 months before the game came out. Somebody at LucasArts realized we don't have a game for the movie.
17 months.
And so
Wow.
we had to build this thing, having never built a 3D game before in our life, hire the people and just get it all done. And and then it was done, and they held it maybe for 3 or 4 days, and it's just out the door right before the movie.
That's pretty bold of them, because the big spoiler at the end of the movie, Obi-Wan mows Darth Maul down with a minigun. That's a pretty big spoiler. I'm surprised they put that out there before the movie came out.
That's the only way I could beat Maul.
Right. I mean, one of the things, another bit of trivia about this is that we had built the tools. I hadn't even come on yet. Mike and the rest of the team had built these tools to build another Star Wars game that was just going to be, I don't even know who the protagonist was going to be for it.
Oh, we pitched at one time.
Wow.
We'd pitched a game. It was going to be in the old Star Wars universe, because we're from a different generation, and for us, the old Star Wars was the cool one. So we wanted to be Darth Vader, and you were gonna play Darth Vader, and you were gonna do all these things, and we built the tools, and then suddenly out of nowhere, they're like, "We need a game for the new movie. It's coming out."
So how did that really go? Like, you guys were at Big Ape, and then Lucasfilm, you said, realized they don't have a game for the movie, which is funny because I think Phantom Menace ended up with like 9 video games attached to it eventually.
Oh my goodness.
Well, oddly enough, there was 3 that were pretty much the main story. Like, there was your guys' game, the Phantom Menace game. There was the Obi-Wan game, which came out a couple years later, where you just play as Obi-Wan. And then there was Jedi Power Battles,
right?
Which was it was weird that all 3 were pretty much the main plot, just in different camera angles, essentially.
You want to go? Yeah, I can tell you real quick. So at that time, you remember, LucasArts games mainly made the point and click adventure games like Monkey Island and Grim Fandango, which I think was under production at that time. And those games took like 3 or 4 years to make. Wow. So internally, they were just built for that. And we were this group that had done a lot of console games and turned them around rather quickly. We did Zombies Ate My Neighbors and stuff. And we just gotten off Herc's Adventures, which didn't do really well. I mean, because the Sega Saturn didn't do really well, but we were looking for a new project, and so we worked with them before we pitched it. So they trusted us to get something done fast, and their internal groups were doing the other games. And so whenever those got done, they kind of got as many games going at one time as they could, hoping something would make it out for the movie.
I think they expected that Racer was gonna make it, but they kind of looked at it and realized, what we really need is sort of the licensed movie tie-in angle. And I think that Jedi Power Battles, I don't even know when that I had first heard about it, but we were well into production, and I think they even started by asking if they had some of the same tech that we were using, like the original, like our models and stuff like that were built using the same tools as like Jedi Knight did. And so it was, for the computers of the time, they were getting faster, and so they could throw a lot of polys if they used those same tools. But yeah, they asked us for some of the different models that we had built so that they could at least block out what they were going to wind up shipping with. They, of course, improved them over time, which we didn't, but we probably could have.
That's still pretty cool. And I must say, out of the 3 of those games that AJ listed, Phantom Menace is the one we go back to. It's actually pretty funny. We're notorious. Anybody who's watched this channel knows that we talk about this game all the time. And anybody who's ever come over, when we have guests, friends, the first thing we do is show them the Phantom Menace video game, because we feel like it's like totally underrated. Not a lot of people know how much there is to the game. We always show them the Mos Espa level. Mos Espa,
Yeah,
I
it's
think
like
is like
That's Ebert. That's Mike.
That's
so
just
good.
our sandbox. Let's do anything level.
Oh man, we get lost in Mos Espa for hours. There's so many things to do in that level.
Have you started like the giant Jawa wars there? If you just start killing Jawas, the whole place goes crazy.
Yeah, it's
Absolutely.
crazy.
Oh my god, are you kidding? That's just a blast.
The Mos
Absolutely.
Espa level is so fun. Like, and I feel like it's really ahead of its time. Like, I have a little picture here, but like you can't really see that well. But you had the dialogue options. Like, what went into choosing to do dialogue trees?
Boy.
And you can say anything. You can say like, Anakin asks you like, "Oh, am I a Jedi, or am I good enough to be a Jedi?" And you can be like, "No, not really," and just like walk away. It's crazy.
Well, we knew so. I think we've told other people on this. We knew so little about this movie, despite the fact that they were making it nearby. It was all blue screens. We were just looking at pictures of actors in front of blue screens. The script was very vague on all the action sequences. We had really no idea how the Jedi powers worked or anything, or how they'd fight. We just had original Star Wars, and we thought, okay, they're just going to swing lightsabers, and that's it. So we tried to get information, but we couldn't. So we just sort of had to start building a game that was this giant sandbox where you could kind of do anything you want, and hopefully it would be fun, because we didn't know what the movie was going to be like.
Yeah, there was also something about it where I kept expecting that at some moment the Lucasfilm legal team was going to walk in the door and say, "Okay, all right, time out, everyone. Let's stop and let's talk about this." They've finally seen the game, but no, it was so fun because we kept getting like, "Keep going, don't no sort." I mean, the one bit of feedback that I remember hearing from Mike from high up is that Gamorrean guards were originally all over Mos Espa. The big hulking guys that you see, those were originally going to be Gamorrean guards. And they kept saying, okay, they have to come out for some reason. And they wouldn't
Really.
like, I thought that Mike, what didn't you say that they weren't?
Didn't they take them out of the original movies too? Because they were doing the remasters about that time.
I don't know. I don't know, because I mean, they're all over. Like the Mandalorian now actually has them.
Yeah.
There was just this dislike of them from coming from Lucasfilm.
So
like, you can't have those in your game.
Yeah. So we finally yanked him and replaced him. Our Eric Wilder in like an afternoon came up with a new. All right, what could be Gamorrean like, but not Gamorrean? And they even have the same axes and so forth.
Slap like, some horns on them.
That's
make
right.
Them say, "You're a no good killer."
I mean, when I think we built Mos Espa first.
Yeah.
And we were just sort of reaching for all sorts of stuff. What could this game be like? Because this was not a dev cycle where there was any prototyping of concept or anything. It was, we have to start building this thing tomorrow, and we don't even know what the design is. And we knew it was kind of being run around in action. We just started adding things in. What can we make that would be fun? Right. So that's probably why it's just such a catch-all of everything.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, there's like 10 different side quests to do. The option to just slaughter everybody in the town. There's the the fetch quest where you can trade items and go wild there. There's so many different characters to talk to. Team Topagli's, this random pod racer that you talk to that literally has like maybe one mention in the movie. Absolutely love it. And then, of
he
course,
was the one chilling
Jar
at the bar, right?
Yeah.
Was he at the bar? Yeah. That was fun.
And
then we were probably showed something that made us think he was a bigger character at the time.
Oh,
like,
and
tons of concepts. You must major character.
No, it's true. It's true. We went to this vault. Like LucasArts had this room that was. It was talk about the skiff of the secure compartmentalized information facility of Mar-a-Lago does not have. We have better at LucasArts than they ever did, because there was like people were signing in to go look at the things. You couldn't record or take anything. I basically begged and said, okay, you can have a dozen images on this trip sent to you. So pick out a dozen images, and then you go back a following week, and it's like, okay, now because they were so careful about making sure that stuff didn't get loose on. This is in the early days of the internet when spoilers were not such a thing. But yeah, we kept. So when we would see somebody of Team Topagales has like pages and pages and pages of images, that's got to be important. So let's really emphasize. No, none of the above.
No, that's great, because obviously later on down the line, Team Topagales does get fleshed out. There's like a million different things about him now. So the fact that he gets a head start in the Phantom Menace video game as a big character with lines and, trading quest is hilarious. That's just so cool. And
it's it's so fun to walk around Mos Espa and just talk to all these characters and even the vendors, and you're asking where you can get a hyperdrive generator, T14 hyperdrive generator. Qui-Gon just asked everybody where
everybody. It's the same line every single time. You can ask everybody. You can kill everybody, or you can ask them all. Does anybody have a T14 hyperdrive generator?
And there's the guys selling Rancor skin jackets. It's
Rancor skin jackets, and
the vibe of Tatooine is just captured right there. I feel
the dung worms.
I have a question. Very important question about dung worms. Who came up with the dung worm idea? And also, in my research, when Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett was coming out, at one point Grogu is eating dung worms in that, and I was like, I don't think dung worms have been mentioned in Star Wars outside the Phantom Menace video game. So I don't know if that's a reference to you guys or not, but it's cool.
I have no idea. That may have been Eric.
Question. It might have been. Yeah, we needed to Choky. I remember it was Choky. There was some
dried Choky.
Dried Choky, but I don't remember the dung worms.
Yeah, there's a thing of dung worms, and there's an extra detail that you guys added because you can roll into the dung worms.
Oh,
and for the rest of the game,
that's
or the rest of the level, people tell you smell awful, and that's just hilarious. Again, that's just like such like a weird little tiny detail that is just too good.
So good.
That it's just hilarious. And my favorite part of the level is Jar Jar ending up in the bath with Max Rebo. That's just it's inspired. It's inspired.
It's so good.
So I think part of this too, we had we built a new scripting system for this game that we'd never had before. Like designers before were just like, okay, I can make an AI that does one thing, or like attack you or it'll run away. We had this full sort of scripting system where we had variables and we could have different options and branches. And so we could construct these guys to do all these crazy things. And for us, that was really exciting. Let's just have them go crazy and build out full AIs for these guys with lots of reactions. And I think that might have been part of it, that we were just excited to have that tool.
Right. And setting flags and things like that other people could pay attention to. It was like, I don't know if we want to do this now, but I do have a running version of the tool that built the game. If we want to take a quick peek at it, I could probably do a quick share.
Which is amazing in itself that it still runs.
Give me just a second to see if I can do this.
Yeah, no rush.
So one thing that's really important too, we came from a video game background. So when we were looking to build this tool, we didn't know anything about 3D models. So we built a tool that's kind of based on the way sprite-based video games are built, with it where everything is a little cube and a character and you kind of snap them all together different ways. It was just something we were familiar with as developers.
Yeah, so this is actually showing the tool itself, showing the original first level of the game. It was called Fedship, and each one of these, you could see it highlighted here up in the red in the top window, was one of the pieces that you could build it. It's all individually stamped down as different pieces of geo. Each one of these sort of low poly, flat polygons can be adjusted, and I'll jump forward a little bit, but like each one of those individual polys can have a texture assigned to it. And then by doing this, you could basically stamp down massive parts of the level. I think one of the reasons why they looked at this and said, okay, maybe we can do this on the PS1 was because everything could get broken down into pretty simple polygons like this. And then you'll love our little Fisher Price guys right here that for the placement of the enemies themselves. You could turn on the models. We rarely did, just because, so you see everything here.
That's cool.
level's pretty large, and this is me sort of floating around. This is the protocol droid that's here at the beginning.
Yeah.
He walks in. And then, as Mike was talking about, this is actually the scripting language that we use to build the whole thing. So each guy had a bit of dialogue. Like we'll go down to the TC-14 guy here, and so like each one of his dialogue lines is represented here. It's a statement, and so as it would run through each of these commands, it would do one after the other sequentially. And so, you know, we sort of, as we were exploring these language, is when we were turned loose in Mos Espa to sort of try all of these things out. What are the ways in which, you know, just as a proof of concept, can we get this stuff going? So, and then this is actually how the models and the animations are associated with each other, and you know how you could have attach points for the weapons and things like that. And as Mike was talking about, this is also how the textures were applied. These sheets of 2D palette images were put down, and then Mike, I think, did every texture in the game where it's all drawn out using these tools. And so like different pages had different bits of data, and just you could section off parts of it and apply it to the different polygons in the game.
That's so cool. I love that. I love that you had this. There's the Queen Amidala.
Yeah, the Queen picture that pops up at like the split second on the screen
on the computers. Yeah.
Again, that's so cool. Look at that.
Yeah, that's so cool.
We animated those together so they'd run in sequence at a particular time.
Wow.
Anyway, all right. So that's all I got for that.
That's awesome though. I appreciate
that's
you.
Not all. That's a lot. That's awesome.
Yeah,
I'm amazed you got it working still.
Yeah, I wish I could share it.
Or...
Yeah, I wish we could share it live. I had to record it using a specific hack, and then I'd love to fire up Mos Espa, but I want to go track down the dung worms again. Now that we're not.
Oh yeah, you got it. It's very important. We actually, I don't think this will mess up anything, but we always play this clip on our live streams, and our other co-host Jamie gets sick of it sometimes. But this
dog worm for sale. Hey, stop walking on my.
Nice.
So our whole everyone in the live chat is always like dung worms. It's kind of just like this inside joke. I don't know why it's so funny, but it just is.
It is. Now that I saw it, it's like, oh right, that guy. I remember
that one.
I think that was the only location we actually had photos of. We just saw that there was this crazy town with all these people, so we just started putting stuff in.
Right.
Oh yeah, I mean that's classic Tatooine. You got to have just stuff everywhere and salesmen and merchants.
With what limited info you had to work on, you still managed to capture the feel of Mos Espa like perfectly. With all the vendors and Jawas running around and all the kids.
Oh yeah, the kids everywhere.
Oh. The kids playing tag.
Yeah, because I think the Gungan city was the one that was the roughest, because until just a few months before we were done, all we saw were blue screens. And then all at once, this thing just appeared and we had to build a level out of it.
Wow. How much had to go in? So you started making the game and then you found out things about the movie. You're like, oh, we have to go change this. How many times did you have to do that? Or was it just one big rush at the end where you changed everything?
So we got a rough cut of the movie. I wish I had a timeline, but there were 2 screenings that LucasArts invited us to that had sort of the rough cut at the time. And the first one was brutally rough, just like, everybody was in front of green screens or blue screens, and the entirety of the pod racing sequence was just a rip-o-matic, basically splices of other famous movies to give just an idea of the timing. It's like, okay, here's a close-up of a pilot, and now here's a faraway shot showing his plane doing something against somebody else. So I guess I jumped and was describing the final fight sequence where they did that. And then the racing sequence for the pod racer was at this other similarly put together where it's guys in Le Mans cars doing stuff. And so we had at least 2 of those, and it was funny because the first time was when we found out about the midichlorians.
Mm.
And the guy who we were who was allegedly going to write our stuff was reassuring afterwards. There's no way that they're not going to cut that out. There's simply no way that they're going to ship the movie with naming the force and how it works. There's no way.
Wow.
The second screening, it was still in, and he's like, he was equally as confident. It's still in, but I'm sure they're going to take it out. Nope, it was there the whole time. We knew before anybody else did about the midichlorian menace.
Very
I'm surprised that
interesting.
wasn't featured heavily in the game.
we kept hearing it was going to be taken out. Yeah, there was. I feel like there was less changes that we were forced to do, except for the Gamorrean guards, and more just this rush to include things that we suddenly found out were in the movie.
Right.
Like we really didn't find out about the submarine stuff maybe until a few weeks before we're done, and there was no time to add anything about that. But and same thing, we saw so little of that big battle scene that there was nothing in there for that either. So
yeah, and for some reason we also heard rumors that Captain Panaka was going to have a much bigger role than he wound up having. And so we devoted a whole freaking level for him running loose in there.
Oh, like the Coruscant level. That's so good.
Yeah.
I literally have a Panaka figure on me at
Ready
all
to
times,
go.
specifically because of that level. Because he's just like he's become like a legendary character for us.
I love that guy.
Yeah, I was disappointed he didn't have a bigger role, because we, from the very beginning, we thought, oh, this is a big character. He was featured heavily in a lot of the concept drawings, and then I guess he's always standing in the background. That's all.
Yeah.
At Star Wars Celebration, we actually met Hugh Corshi, the guy who played Panaka, specifically because we were just like obsessed with his role in the movie and the game, and that's so good.
Awesome.
But yeah, that level's fun. You can sell the electro binoculars, I think, for
Got to sell the electric binoculars
tour tickets
to get a tour to the Senate.
Yeah, brilliant.
It's just,
it was really cool to see. Like, you guys we barely see Coruscant in that movie. Like, we don't see too much of it, like interior and everything. But like, you guys kind of nailed it with. It's kind of similar to the Mos Espa level. I think there's a little room with like vendors and stuff you get to eventually. But I mean, it's a great level. Even though Panaka isn't really featured in the film, it's a fun level.
I think we saw footage of the remasters too at that time, because didn't they go back and add some stuff in the original and we got to see some of that stuff, so we used some of that as reference.
Because they added a shot of Coruscant to Return of the Jedi.
Right,
that's right.
And we actually had as an Easter egg that's another thing that made us take us out. There was a Millennium Falcon we had built, and it was flying around in the background there.
Really?
Yeah.
You're kidding.
No, it was there in one of the far shots that it was gonna run and land somewhere in the distance as you were on the original first platform with the big Royal Starship. But they were like, nope, doesn't exist yet. Take it out.
But it's interesting.
And then they put it in 3.
In Revenge of the Sith, it's in a little cameo, at the beginning.
Yep.
Easter egg.
Okay.
Interesting. They took your idea.
We missed out on an opportunity.
So to go off the Panaka thing, what you guys saw, you thought he'd play a bigger role, but so I think you play as Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, Panaka, and Padme in the final level. Did you have? I guess those are obviously the main characters, but did you have any like Jar Jar playable levels or any other plans for other characters to play as?
Go ahead, Ray.
Yeah. So late in the game, we saw the last rough cut and how much time was spent on the Gungan battle in the rough cut of the movie, and we realized, you know what, we don't have anything between Coruscant and the next level, which is the reverse Naboo City level. So I tried, and we didn't get anywhere with it because, for a number of reasons, I tried to make something where you were playing as Captain Tarpals during some of the battle sequences, and you'd just be mowing through all these battle droids, but each one of them became each idea that we had was too much of a one-off to actually put together. We actually had cut out some of our other one-off sequences we had. There was originally going to be, Obi-Wan was going to ride one of the Stap hover things throughout the swamp level. We actually had a track built around it.
Wow.
We were also going to drive around one of the AAT tanks. I forget where that was going to be.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about that tank thing.
Where
yeah.
Obi was going to jump in one of the big tanks, and we actually had, I don't even know if these guys made it in, survived this, but we had sort of black ops Baron droids that were carrying rocket launchers, and I don't know if those guys were in the game or not.
Wow.
We built them and they were functional, and they were going to be one of the big guys or the main fodder that you'd fight against in the tank level, but then the whole thing got cut out. But yeah, similarly, we wanted to do we, probably meaning me, Mike was like, there's no way he was right. There's no way we can get this done in any period of time.
Like I said, we were just unleashed to build anything. So people were building stuff all over the place. It was like, make a fun level because we don't know what the story is. And I do remember the part with driving the tank, trying to like get it down the streets. And yeah, in the end, it came down to time because we cut out the PvP level too, which a lot of people internally were really liking.
Right. Talk about that a bit. I know that's you guys have talked about that a little in the past. What went into that, and
mostly just we had a couple of engineers who had just this didn't come about until literally Mike and John were out the door down at LucasArts. We work in Novato. LucasArts is down in San Rafael. They were like 10 minutes away, but we were like, had nothing to do. We hadn't had our next project set up yet. And so because Mike and John were on site and we were just like, well, what are things that we might be able to pull off? Our engineers came up with LAN versions of being able to play the game. And so started playing around with it. Is this something that we could, back then patches didn't exist. And so for PC games, it was still brand new stuff. It's like, how would this even work? But yeah, it was just us trying to figure out, can we do something like this, whether it be for a sequel or whatever. But I don't remember it actually. It was a couple of months before the game shipped. We had a little bit of time. It's like, can we even do anything? And it's like, no, we can't make it.
It was fun to play though. I mean, it was everybody throwing thermal detonators at each other.
Don't tell me that. Don't tell me that.
It was so fun because it was like the thermal detonators. That was another thing. No, we made thermal detonators as this is something that if you pulled it out in Jabba's palace and everybody thought they were in danger, that had to mean that it was going to go off like a miniature nuclear device. So imagine our surprise when we see these little thermal detonators go off in dark forces, and they're like this little piddly grenade that's this big. So we built ours like, no, this is how it must be. So of course, anybody, we had this map where you could jump down in this pit and find your way around. So if you ever saw anybody in the pit, whoever held the thermal detonator, it was going following them after because they were dead. It was like whoever was down in that pit when the thermal detonator went off. Nope, that's it. They're dead. It was fun.
Wow. That's awesome.
So good. Did you guys have how far was it into, how far into making it were you? Like, did you have playable characters you could choose in that yet? Or
I mean, all of the in the game, all of us had, only the 4 playable characters were available. I did sort of map a Darth Maul onto
I was gonna say
Qui-Gon. So
that would have been so cool.
That kind of worked. And I think we also did do a Mace Windu character as playable. Similarly, just in rough blackout, they didn't have their own animations. They were just playing either Obi-Wan's or Qui-Gon's animations. But it was kind of cool.
I mean, in all fairness, if we probably had another month, I think we could have shipped that. It was more that there was no interface to get into it, no networking stuff that was
right.
Really
we didn't have any sort of UI to sort of handle. Yeah. Okay, this is an IP. Who the hell knew what we didn't know what we were doing back then? It's like none of us were network engineers. The handful of people that we had, like literally, they had to hard code into the code our IP addresses to just get the 8 or so PlayStation or 8 or so stations available to share and fight with each other.
Wow.
That would have been so cool. I wish,
Yeah.
like, I was just saying to Matt, I think last night, like, I mean, I don't know if you guys wish you could have, but I wish you guys could have made it a game for 1, 2, and 3. Because there
Yeah.
wasn't really a game made for Attack of the Clones episode 2 there. And like I feel like 1 in your format of how it was could have been really fun. I don't know.
Man.
Yeah, I
But,
think the response from LucasArts was that it didn't sell as well as they hoped. But you know, part of that was that the first movie didn't do as well either. I mean, across the
Right.
board, marketing and merchandise didn't sell very well for it. And you know, because I think it would have been really cool to keep going and building that engine out. Because originally we were going to design it for the PS2, and so a PS2 version of that engine would have been really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a late call that we actually didn't go on to the PlayStation 2. I can't remember. It was early in development. I can't remember when the PS2 came out. Was it
Yeah.
99 or 98?
It got delayed. That's why we didn't go on PS2. We were going to be a
right.
launch title on PS2, and then they pushed it back an entire year. And it's like, well, that you guys got to get it on the PS1.
Yeah. But yeah, it would have been fun. And I mean, you know, as you can tell, it's not like I don't enjoy Star Wars, so that would be fun to revisit it again. You know, at the same time, looking at it through the lens of what we know now as game developers, there's a lot of things that, you know, gameplay controls have evolved significantly back then. You know, even the controllers that we're using are a much better for, like the PS2, are a much better fit. So I'd love to revisit it just because, you know, I'd like to apply some of the stuff that we know now on it. But you know, it's also, again, the end of an era where 10 people could put together a Star Wars game. Never happening again. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, companies were just starting to ramp up. Before we worked on that, our project sizes were like 4 or 5 people. We did Zombies Ate Bad Neighbors. It was pretty much 3 people building the game: a programmer, a level designer, and an artist making most of the art for the characters. So, but you know, things were starting to grow, and then now dev cycles are totally different. You'd have months to develop the concept and show people what the gameplay is. And then get approvals, and then engineers working on it, and this was more like just build it and get it done in that amount of time.
Get it out of here.
Yeah.
So you guys, one of my questions was, what's one of your favorite things that didn't get added? It seems like it was the PvP. I don't know, unless you guys have something else as well. But the second part of that question was like, what was your favorite thing you did add? I know Mos Espa's up there for you, Michael, but
I would have liked to see the whole game be like Mos Espa, every location. But part of that problem was time and then just lack of information. Some of those locations were so poorly developed as far as information we were able to get. Like that whole opening scene with the poison gas in the conference room, that came about at the very last second. We didn't understand that there was anything like that. And we saw, I think, the second rough cut where it was almost done. And we saw that scene, and it's like, that's not how our game starts.
Right.
So we had to build that conference room, get that gas in there.
Do you remember how it originally started for you guys?
I literally think you just were talking to Qui-Gon in a room and walked out the door and went, and there was nothing else.
Yeah. And then I guess what was another thing? During that, like, as Mike said earlier, we did not know what the Jedis could do. And we kept saying, you know, so all we knew that they knew how to do was deflect blaster bolts with lightsabers. And we had heard something about, like, okay, there could be a force push or something like that. And so that's what we built the game out of. And then I remember seeing one of the final rough cuts, and suddenly both Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan do this like buzz, and just sort of like and some high speed run, and we're like, what was that? You know,
once and never again. They never do it again.
It's so bizarre. It's like, what we could absolutely have made a quick, you know, a dash maneuver or something like that if only we had another month, which we didn't get. As far as stuff that I was really happy that, so Mike will tell you that when I heard no from Mike about, I would want to put some like the big walking droids that turned into the starfighters, the Trade Federation things that were walking. I'm all like, please, let's put them on. And he's all, there is no way that we're going to have gameplay with those guys. We should just, we could have them fly around in the distance and that's it. I'm all like, So he goes home one night and I'm all like, okay, here I go. Blah, blah. Next time he comes in, he walks in. I had put it into the game, fires up the lobby. He's all, what's that? He walked into this room and they drop down, start firing a couple shots and then turn and leave.
Yeah,
so
that was a cool scene though. It looked great.
It was one of those where it was like, it's never going to happen anymore, where it's like somebody has an idea and the tool set that we had fast enough immediate turnaround time that one person could do something and just try it out. If it didn't sell well, it could absolutely, okay, it's only a day's worth of work. We'll just toss it aside. There were a couple things that we did like that, but for the most part, everything that we put in, it was additive. It was like everything that we had, and maybe that's the thing that I've heard from other people. It's like, you could tell that the people, like, we had a good time making this game. There was, we've all been since then have been on projects that were just slogs of stuff that we're working on that isn't fun. But here we're toying around in the Star Wars universe. We're fans of the genre, and we're able to do stuff that, no one was there to tell us no. So it was really a fun develop. It was also my first game of the industry. So, all games have to be like this, right? Not so much.
That's crazy.
You can tell you guys made the game having fun. You could tell. I mean, just again, from the fact that just anybody, you can just kill anybody. You can just go around and just make your own story, do your own
There's so
thing.
much freedom to it. Yeah. It's like playing with your action figures, I guess, as a kid, or, making up your own story as you go there.
Yeah, I would love if more games were like that. It's tough to get people to sign off on just building a fun sandbox.
Especially with Star Wars these days, they're very strict on canon and what can happen, what can't happen with freedom.
I will say one of my questions was whether or not you guys have ever played any of the, or more specifically, the more recent Lego Star Wars game.
Oh, because I actually have played those.
The most recent one, I mean, there's a Mos Espa level, and it's the same kind of thing where you can just go around and you can kill anybody you want, and you can just, do side quests and like explore. And I was sitting there and I'm like, there's no way that the developers didn't sit down and play the Phantom Menace video game before making this, because it's too similar in
Lego
ideas and design.
Yeah, and Lego, those games are perfect for that too, because I mean, that's really what they want kids to do. Just have fun messing around in the game. It's it's got lots of weird little things and characters to use. So,
though I will say, you cannot pick up a minigun, and you cannot pick up blasters as Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. That's probably that blew my mind. And to this day, it's the only way I can beat Darth Maul. I was half kidding when I said that Qui-Gon mows him down with a railgun at the beginning, because it's the only way I can beat him.
Well, I feel so bad about that too, because at that era, I've worked in the industry a lot now, and I've seen some of the rigorous testing that games go through. I mean, focus groups, everything. During that era, there was really no focus groups or anything. I don't think they wanted to reveal the story. That was part of it.
Right.
So our only feedback were from game testers who were all hardcore players. So, this is somebody, not your average player playing this. This is some guy that's played this game 600 hours, and he's telling you it's too easy or something. So, yeah, it was just a weird universe that we didn't get that sort of feedback, because I would have loved to just tune the stuff a lot better.
Yeah, we ran out of time.
With the time you were given and like how much information it seems you were given, like, I mean, obviously you guys did a great job with all of it, and it, just how it looks and how it pretty much feels like the movie, and that's what you guys were, supposed to accomplish. So it was good. But my next question was, have you guys? I assume you guys have obviously played the game, but have you start to finish beaten the game?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
You're talking
not
about
on PS1.
Maybe that's a valid thing. That's a valid thing that I don't know about. I mean, I used to be able to do the speed runs when we got our this is our Gone Gold test, I ran through it in like 3 hours, just bam, bam, bam. So yes, but yeah, Mike's right. It's possible that the PS1 version, like, it's not 1-to-1, as everyone who's played both of them, there was some stuff that got trimmed out, and the control schemes were a rough mapping, but I don't know if anyone spent a lot of time really tuning to say, does this feel the same turn radius or whatever that the PS1 would have as what the stock PC that we were developing on. I don't know.
There was a lot of stress getting that one done, because I remember after it was done, a couple of programmers had to take just a long vacation for their mental health.
Wow.
It was, part of it was just the ability of the PS1 to handle the memory requirements, the AIs and stuff of the game, that it just wasn't, the processor wasn't able to handle all that. I give them credit for getting it working though, but I do believe there's some frame rate problems, places where the frame rate probably gets rough and stuff didn't. At that time, we didn't have this notion of your actual frame rate calculating into the controls all the time. And I'm sure that there's places on the PlayStation 1 where it probably suffers because of that.
I will say we have beat the game, legitimately beat the entire PlayStation 1 game. That was a journey and a half. Because at first we played through the whole game with like the invincibility cheat on, just to be able to play the game, just to explore.
Yeah.
And then later on it was like, all right, let's see if we can pull this off. Let's see if we can beat the game without the invincibility. And we did. And
it's tricky on PS1, and like, we liked the game as a kid. We couldn't beat it, but then like a handful of years ago we just got obsessed with this game, and I don't know why. Well, as we were starting the podcast,
brought my PlayStation over one day. I had it in like my bundle of Star Wars games, and we just plucked it because we loved the Phantom Menace, and we were like, oh my god. I will say, even with the invincibility cheat on, that fan in the Fed ship,
right,
shreds you every time, no matter what.
I love that.
I do too.
Dismemberment in Star Wars has not been really done the same way since.
No way.
I think that's the only thing that causes that sort of animation in that, right?
I think that's true. That was a test. So you may have heard this story before, but I love telling it. So we were experimenting with, can we dismember somebody since they're lightsabers? And that's one of the memorable moments of the original trilogy was, hey, lightsabers cut off limbs. So maybe we should experiment with this. And so we did have this thing that would detect where in the body that the lightsaber touched and does a check. Yes, go ahead and lop this off if it's one of these things that was marked. They made us take it out because kids in Mos Espa, swing that Qui-Gon does, his first default forward swing is at exactly the height of the child's head.
Oh,
and
no.
so there was this brief, magnificent moment of time where if you got into the I'm going to kill everyone, you would swing and kids' heads would pop off and
my god,
go airborne and roll around on the ground. I think it lasted about a week before somebody at LucasArts was like, okay, no.
That was, I know that it went to test with that and people found it.
Oh no. I can imagine, Lucasfilm coming to you guys and being like, no, that's a spoiler for episode 3. We can't include that yet.
Yeah, true.
That's true.
Wow.
Oh wow.
But yeah, right. But that tech that we built just to say lop off this limb and make it do whatever, that I think is the only surviving instance that we kept that functioning. But yeah, that's what we wound up doing with it.
Not a bad implementation. That is certainly something that caught me, 4-year-old Matt, off guard many a time. Absolutely love it though. Absolutely love it.
Obi-Wan just turns into pieces. Matt, did you have any other questions you wanted to ask? I had a couple more.
I think I've got all my questions. I'm just along for the ride. This is just fun.
That's good. Yeah, that's good. Happy to be here. What were they? Oh yeah. So if you guys could kind of make a game of any of the Star Wars movies, any of the Star Wars films, like you've obviously done Phantom Menace, what do you think you would choose?
Oh,
I can go first. I've already made an Empire Strikes Back one. People don't realize that, but it was on the NES. It wasn't
Oh
great.
yeah.
It wasn't a great game. It was my first thing where I got to work on it in the design side.
Oh
Okay.
wow.
We
I
played
would
the Return
probably,
of the Jedi one, I think. Yeah.
I think
We
I would
played.
do, I think I'd do Empire Strikes Back again, but the whole big world, like more of a sandboxy thing.
Yeah.
That's hard to know. I mean,
I
it's
mean, you are
me. So,
you are wearing
yeah,
an Empire Strikes Back shirt, so
I
maybe.
know. No,
I know.
but I honestly feel like the game that I want to make is another. I don't even know if it's not really. I honestly want to make more of something like Mandalorian, where it's
Yeah.
not necessarily um, stuck to I mean, having um, it has basically a little bit of everything, a little bit of space combat, a little bit of exploration, meeting new characters, doing new things. That's something that I feel like we could absolutely pull off, knowing what we know. I mean, everybody in the world is wanting to make the big space combat stuff nowadays, but that's what I would love to make.
That's
Yeah.
a perfect answer.
It is.
Mandalorian has a Mos Espa. There you go. Make another
Yes,
Mos Espa.
there you go.
I don't want to say it would be like a Grand Theft Auto of Star Wars, but like, being your own little bounty hunter or something, if it was Mando or not, and just kind of going around the galaxy, and it would have like
I
Matt just said, the Mos Espa level.
I can't
So,
believe they haven't made like Grand Theft Auto meets Star Wars. I
yeah,
mean, it's
right?
just
Come on.
perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The universe just lends that design perfectly to that kind of game. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, me and Mike have that scavenger game that we were pitching some time ago.
You can't tell
was
it. That's all proprietary stuff.
that's that. I don't know what
Games
you're
that
talking
will
about.
never get made.
Confidential.
It'll never get made, but it had that vibe to it. It was, in vehicles, on foot, exploration, RPG, blah 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 blah. But
Wow.
yeah, it's something that would fit pretty well into any of the things like Andor, even any of these sort of separated from the universe of Skywalker, but in any of these
Yeah.
would work. Even the whole I'm probably not supposed to say this, but it's like I enjoyed Solo a lot more than most people I know. And just
Oh,
in
yeah.
terms of all of these hinting at all of these different groups of people that are each trying to make a living in this giant world. I would love to explore that a little bit more in game form.
Oh, yeah.
I
Yeah,
love
I mean, a
Solo.
game where you can
Same.
play, a game where you can just play one of these. You're just another adventurer in the world. You don't have to be one of the main characters or anything,
Right.
or part of the big organization, because it's a rich universe.
Hmm.
I always loved Rogue Squadron, or was that what was the Rogue One? Sorry, Rogue One.
Rogue One,
Like
Yeah.
all those characters, I want to know who those people are. More
Yeah.
about them. I just want to be one of those guys.
Yeah, and you mentioned Andor. Andor did that so well with. It's just you're learning about these random people doing mundane jobs, pretty much.
Yeah.
It's great. Have you seen Andor?
No, I'm not.
Oh, you got to watch it.
Oh, it's great.
It's better than anything you've seen in Star Wars.
I need to do a big catch up on all the Star Wars stuff. So here's the funny part. I've never actually seen the movie The Phantom Menace.
Oh, plot
what a
twist.
reveal!
I've only seen that last rough cut that we saw, and there was some supreme disappointment there after the reviews started coming out. Like, I don't think I need to go see it.
Wow.
I told myself I'd see if it was ever free on TV one night. I'll watch it, and I've just never caught it.
That's great.
It's true. It is true that but it's like our reviews were not great, and for the game, I mean, and part of that is a product of maybe a fair amount of disappointment for the movie itself, and the high hopes that people had for it. That's plenty of things that, like, looking back on it, I wish we could have tackled a few things differently, have had some more change of pace moments. Just as a function, I feel proud of what we were able to accomplish in the amount of time we had and what we had to go on in terms of story stuff. So I feel proud about it, and yet it's an imperfect product. You know, all of these things that given another year of development, it would have been really cool to see what we could have come up with.
Yeah, it was a learning experience though for all of us, because things about that tool then and stuff we did in that game then carried on through other games we worked on. Like I worked with Ray on Skylanders too, and that had a lot of the same sort of crazy sandboxy stuff in it. And yeah, we learned from it.
That fun story. That tool is actually the beginnings. The scripting language was what Toys for Bob wound up. Their original tool set was pretty much. We shared office space with Toys for Bob. Big Ape and Toys for Bob were both similarly sized companies at the time. And then at some point, Paul and Fred sort of worked with Dean and Mike about, hey, we'd like to use something resembling this scripting language. And they kept going with it. Like we actually wound up moving to different tool sets, but they stuck with it and basically kept iterating on it. So when we started working, when both of us actually worked at Toys for Bob after that, after Big Ape went under, we came back and it was the old scripting language, and it was working great. So we got in there and we were having fun doing stuff again.
That's really cool.
That has to be cool. That's a cool experience. Wow.
And to go with what like anything in Star Wars, I feel like people don't like it at first, unless it's like Andor or Mandalorian, and then 10 years later, it's a nostalgic, beloved thing. And I think the Phantom Menace, it's the movie itself and the game, are liked now, because whenever we post about it on Twitter or any social media or on our podcast, people are like, "Oh, I love that game!" Like, or they just they type out like a quote from the game that they remember. But
You're a no good killer.
Well, this is pretty funny you mentioned that, because so before the pandemic, I worked in an office with a group of extremely hard Star Wars fans. I mean, they were hardcore, and they were all different age ranges. There were some really young people there, maybe like 19, and some people that are older than me, and I'm pretty old. And everybody had their different trilogy that they liked. And it was funny because when you were born is when that's the trilogy you like. So like you guys like the Phantom Menace and that stuff because it came out when you were young. And then we were like, well, but we saw the original trilogy. That's the better one. And then we had people telling us all the new stuff on Disney. That's the best stuff, because that was really what they were experiencing. Yeah. And it's just kind of cool that it sticks different ways with different people.
Yeah, and I hate to be the one to admit this, but it's like I didn't love the prequel trilogy, and I didn't love the sequel trilogy. But to think of those 6 movies and realize that I enjoyed Phantom Menace more than any of them is actually, that's shocking to me, that in the scheme of things, I didn't even Revenge of the Sith was not, I don't know. It wasn't my bag. Too much bad acting.
The Phantom Menace is my favorite of the prequels for sure.
Same.
Like there's just a charm about it. I don't know what it is. But yeah, Michael, if you can find it, give it a watch at some point. I can't believe we're probably talking to the only person on planet Earth that has never seen the finished movie and has only ever seen
the game version of it. Yeah.
The funny thing, I've seen the second and third movies.
Oh my God.
I just never got around to watching the first one because I knew it inside and out from working on the game.
Lived it.
Yeah.
You lived it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty much all the questions I have as well. Thanks for joining us, guys. If you get, if you want to plug maybe what you're working on now, or
I work Worlds of Warcraft.
Okay, cool.
So
I see the sweatshirt behind there.
Yeah. So you can always come play.
Plugging of anything I'm working on right now. I mean, our studio is actually doing some fun work on supporting the Call of Duty stuff. But something we've got coming up is a Crash Bandicoot game for Activision that we're excited about, and that's
cool.
Stay tuned. There's more information coming, and it was recently announced. It'll be a fun multiplayer platforming game that we're excited about.
Very
I'm
cool.
excited about that.
That's
That
awesome.
sounds great.
Wow. But thanks again, Michael and Ray. Phantom Menace game.
Thanks.
we love it. And
Yep.
yeah, you can find us at HoloNet Marauders on YouTube, at HoloNet Marauder on Twitter, HoloNet Marauders on Instagram. And yeah, thanks for watching, guys.